Okay, so I am obviously sitting in my living room, and I'm not at a school site because I'm not teaching right now. And in fact, I didn't even use my own children to teach this lesson like I did in the last class, just because of kind of the nature of how this lesson was set up. It just felt like it was going to be even more awkward to sit here with one kid. I only had one kid that would understand a 7th grade level math lesson. So I guess here's my reflection with myself. So the first question you ask is the reasons for choosing the specific strategies for teaching comprehension. This lesson was really hard for me. I think this was the hardest lesson plan I've ever had to write, including in my credentialing classes. And I kind of did that to myself. I kind of boxed myself in a corner and maybe didn't make the best decision. But by the time I realized that, I think I was too far into the lesson to want to go back and change it. Having only taught math, I should say only, I haven't only taught math. For content, I've only taught math for the last, well, let me see, for 11 of my 13 years of teaching. I have not taught reading since my first 2 years. So that was 2002, 2003 that I taught reading, and after that it's been all math, with some AVID and ASB and study skills and things of that nature. But as far as content is concerned, I've only taught math since 2004. So it was hard, even though I'm in this program and I'm trying to open the door to become a reading instructor. I'm motivated by taking these classes to really help my son first and foremost, and my career is kind of a second back thought, if you will. So my natural instinct is to go to a math lesson. And actually I had a much better math lesson in mind, but didn't have a textbook to support it. And I wanted to make sure that I included navigating the textbook, because that's something I didn't do a lot of when I was in the classroom. I really had my students only use the textbook for assignments, not for instructional purposes. I was the expert in instruction, and I had them use my notes as their guides for instruction. And I recognize now that I should not have been doing that I should have been teaching them how to read the textbook and teaching them how to use the textbook on their own so that they would be better prepared for the future. So I had a great lesson in mind that I had done in math. And then I don't have a textbook, but my son is 7th grade, and I was doing a 7th grade math lesson. And he came home from school, and I said, okay, give me your math workbook, because I knew he had a math workbook. I just need to find this lesson so that I can incorporate it into my lesson plan. I literally had written the entire lesson plan. It was superb. Come to find out that he only had part 1 in the workbook because it's early in the year. Part 1 goes all the way through the end of chapter 4. I needed the first lesson of chapter 5 to support the original lesson plan that I had written. And it would have been fantastic, and it would have been way better. And so I realized, okay, now I've got to start all over again, using something from chapters 1 through 4, and picked a lesson that I had kind of thought about in the back of my mind, dealing with TIP, just because it is so easy in that lesson to create that situational model for students and to get that transfer of knowledge, because it's something they can all relate to, even in your kids that are new to the country or from lower socioeconomic status. In my experience, and I've had a lot of students that are quite literally brand new to the country and have walked into my class, they still understand to some extent the idea of leaving a tip and what that means. So I wanted to do something that was extremely relevant for the lesson, and that's why I chose this. That being said, I don't know that this lesson enabled me or allowed me to teach comprehension really, really well. I tried to incorporate going through the text structure. And again, my son is using a workbook, which is probably what I would want to use if that was an option over a textbook anyways. I like the idea of not having to generate a separate notes and having it all in one, the notes where you can write in the margins and stuff. I do like that. And I think that the transfer of the strategy from a workbook to a textbook is, it's pretty seamless. I think they'd be able to transfer that skill of being able to comprehend and understand how to read that text structure. I don't know that I did a really great job of that. I wanted to, in terms of the explicit vocabulary instruction, I really wanted to have my students generate some ideas of what tip is, so that they had some buy-in into the definition. And I did that a lot in teaching anyways. When I would teach the explicit vocabulary for that particular lesson, I would really try to look at either where have you seen this in other contexts, or do you see any root words that you recognize, or like prefixes and suffixes that you recognize that we could use to maybe figure out what this word means. That's not... And then we would stop and I would generate the formal definition as far as that explicit instruction piece would go. Again, I don't know that I'm really all that pleased with myself in this lesson. And maybe that's just because it's an odd scenario to be teaching, to a wall. I've got a wall sitting in front of me, so not a real kid or kids. It's definitely not an authentic situation. Okay, effectiveness of my direct instruction. Again, obviously this is not an authentic situation, so I don't think my direct instruction is as effective as it would be if I was in a real classroom with a real group of students doing this and actually having the play between me and them. I think anytime you put yourself in a situation where you're role playing with nobody, it's obviously not going to come out quite right. That being said, this is one of my favorite lessons to teach because it is real and it is something that kids can't escape. You're often faced with the question in math, well, when am I ever going to use this? Well, you are going to use tipping and taxes. That you can't escape it. So this is one of my favorite units to teach, and I think any of my past students would vouch for that and the effectiveness of my instruction in these lessons in a normal situation. Areas of strength in my teaching. I did like coming up with the menu lesson and sending the kids out for lunch and letting them pick where they got to go and pick what they got to order as long as they stayed within budget. I think that is fun. It gives the kids a chance to have some of that motivation. We talked about in the readings, the motivation is driven by choice, and so the kids get to choose their restaurant, they get to choose what they're going to eat. And that might be kind of exciting for some kids that have maybe never or rarely ever get to go to like a sit-down restaurant that's not, maybe fast food or something like that. Kind of an exciting little, escape, if you will, even though they're not actually going anywhere, to go get to pick. And maybe some of the kids, like in 7th grade, would still be ordering off the kids menu, so to have that freedom, to choose whatever you want as long as you can stay under $100 with your table. And I think that's kind of I think I would have had fun with that as a kid, and I think most students would probably kind of have fun with that. And again, it gives them that real world situation that you part of being a contributing member to society is knowing the appropriate places to tip and the appropriate amounts to tip, and so learning those kinds of skills. I think that was a strong choice on my part, even if the lesson as a whole maybe wasn't the greatest. I think the activity was a good one. Areas that could be improved and how you might improve them next time you teach this lesson. Again, it goes back to the authentic piece. That's very inauthentic for me to talk to a wall and be videotaped doing it and try to make it seem real. I definitely thrive off the energy of my students, and so to not have them is definitely to my detriment. I definitely, going forward in my career, since I'm not teaching right now, will always keep in mind the teaching of the text structure, which, as I've said time and again, I had never thought of, and I just hadn't put any thought to teaching how to use the book other than how to find the problems that I was assigning. So that's something that is definitely going to always be in my mind now, is if I'm in a school where I'm given a text, because my last school I was given nothing, absolutely nothing, no text, no nothing. If I'm in a school where I have a curriculum that I need to use and it includes a text, I need to make it a priority to teach my students how to utilize the text to the full extent that you can. So pointing out a glossary. I don't think they need to have the answers pointed out to them. They usually come to me knowing that the odd answers are in the back of the book, or certain answers are in the back of the book. But if I need to point that out, I can point that out. How to read the lesson, how to read through the examples, and I definitely want to do a better job of that going forward. As far as like vocabulary instruction, I actually think I did a really good job of that already, and trying to get the kids to buy into the definitions by generating them themselves, even if I came in at the end and kind of formalized everything and wrote it nice and neat. So yeah, my biggest area of improvement is going to be in text structure. Now, if I do end up getting a job where I'm going to be teaching, explicitly teaching reading, obviously there's a whole lot of places I could improve and work on, just because I have not been doing that much. But if I stay in math, text structure, and helping students to comprehend a math textbook as a resource is going to be high on my priority